Some time ago, we saw the story of Noah unfold. Noah was someone that lived in the beginning, in the book of Genesis, as it is recorded. And we saw last time that he was called by God to a special mission when he was 600 years old. And that mission was not easy. And the first thing we learn reading this story is that he didn't question God. He didn't argue with him that he wanted to continue his life as it was, that this was going to disrupt his routine, that he was not ready to travel. How would you feel being uprooted to a country you have never visited before? I know, because when God called me to go to Nigeria, I didn't even know Africa, not talking of Nigeria. And then I had absolutely no idea what African climate and looks were. So if you have made an experience like that, even traveling from one country to the next, say you are going from France to the UK, and you think that it will be the same, it's not going to be the same. In fact, it's completely so different that it will baffle you. So that was the call of God to Noah. And remember that Noah was married, his sons were married, he was ready to be a grandfather. And yet, God called him, and he said yes. And so many others along the stories, along the books of the Bible, have made the same commitment. And that's one thing that God knew about Noah. He knew that that man loved him enough to trust him and commit his life to him, trusting him to be his shepherd. And we are just the flock. Have you ever seen a sheep complaining, bah, 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 I don't agree? So he was called. He said yes. And God shared his mind with him. And that's what the reward is. The first reward we get from expressing our commitment and love to God is being part of his story. Learning, hearing him share his mind with us. Just like he did with Abraham. Told him, Sodom and Gomorrah are not up to standard, and I'm afraid I have to destroy them. But God, telling that to Abraham, knew that Abraham was not going to say, well, yeah, great, they deserve it. No. Abraham started begging with God. So now Noah listened, and God gave him specific instructions. And in the next chapter of the story, in Genesis chapter 7, we see that God made the impossible possible. First of all, the ark was built. And at the time, engineering was not what it is today. Just think of it. That mighty boat with 3 stories was made. Perfect. And perfection was absolutely needed. It was the crux of the matter, because if not, the whole boat would have sunk. And that would have been the end of the story. We wouldn't be here listening to that story. So Noah did as instructed, to the latest detail, the tiniest detail. The measurements, the covering of the boat, the arrangement inside, the place the door was to be, everything was planned by God and given as a blueprint. And remember, that's the way God does. That's what he did to Moses. He told Moses how to build the tabernacle in the wilderness with detailed instructions. And they are not just fanciful, they have a reason. There is a reason for the instructions. So if your boss was to give you an instruction, you wouldn't dream of inventing something else and arguing with him. No, frankly, I don't think you are right here. You have to trust God to the details. And so, not only that Noah did as instructed, but he persuaded his sons and daughters-in-law and wife to follow the same instructions. So as he was telling them what God had said, they all contributed to that build, and he did it. And then we have also to take into consideration the time it took to build the ark. And when he was building the ark, he was doing something that was looking utterly foolish, because there was no water, there was no stream, there was nothing of the like. He was building on dry ground. And the whole town must have been coming to visit. It was the talk of the town. And people would have commented. Most of those comments must have been very, very negative, because he could not tell people the reason. Or maybe actually he did. And that's what we hear in the second letter to Peter, of Peter. Peter's letter that was saying he was a preacher of righteousness. So he must have told people all the while he was building, and people were laughing, and he was getting tired but continuing. He was telling them, a flood is coming. God is going to destroy the world. You can still make it. Repent. And you can hear the ha ha ha. Nobody wanted to listen. That's exactly what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah. When Lot went to tell his prospective sons-in-law, men, you better repent so that you follow us out of this. God is going to destroy our town. All he heard was rebuke and mocking. They didn't want to listen. And so if you are now talking to people and they don't want to listen, we are in a good place. We have all been there. We are all there. But we should continue no matter what. Be preacher of righteousness. My son, my daughter, my brother, my sister. Be preachers of righteousness. Continue telling people, why would you like to perish? God said it's not his will that any should perish. Please, change your ways. Surrender to him. Make a gamble. Trust him. Many have done this. Blaise Pascal in France, 17th century, was a preacher of righteousness after his conversion. He told his friends, my friends, just abandon gambling. Gamble your life to God. I don't think he had many converts, but he did it all the time and all the way. And it is even recorded for people to study when you study French literature. And there are many more like that. So he had all the time while he was building that ark. And another point is he never got discouraged. He continued, because obviously the ark was built. And in the end, who entered the ark? Noah, his 3 sons, and their wives, and Noah's wife. And then, who entered next? All the animals. And look that God said that he should make all these couples of animals enter. He gave them specific instructions. How male and female of so many animals should enter. How many God calculated. And that was a tall order. In fact, it was completely impossible. Try to call the animals that are all over the place and tell them, in your language obviously, come to the ark. Who will listen? Will the ants listen? Will the elephants listen? Remember, they were not tamed. They were not just that nice dog or cat. But we read that on the appointed day, God made all the animals to flock to the ark, and they entered. What was impossible to men is possible to God, as it was yesterday, it is today. And they entered. So the wait was worth the while. It gave Noah time to share the salvation potential with people, and it gave him time to build the ark according to instructions. So let it be our own experience too.